Hi, welcome back to the shop. Thanks for stopping by. Before we get into this week's video project, wanted to talk about the giveaway that is going to happen. We've hit 500 subscribers, which I'm very appreciative of. And so I just want to give some instruction as to how you can get in on the giveaway draw. So if you look on the right side center of your screen, there's a red subscribe button right there. So what you need to do is click that. I just circled it in red if you're not sure where it is. So it's a little more obvious, and right beside it now is a nice red arrow. So you click on that, subscribe to the channel, then circled down below you'll see where it's add a public comment. Click in on that box that's circled in green and now has a red arrow beside it, and leave a comment, any comment that you choose, and that is what we will be using for this random comment picker, which will select a name out of the comments, only from the comments on YouTube. So if you came over from Facebook and you leave a comment on Facebook, you won't be in the draw. So you have to do it on YouTube, and you have to be subscribed to the channel to leave a comment. So that's how that's going to work. The prize is going to be a yellow birch rolling pin, which if you go back and take a look, you'll see a video of one that I did previously. I'll leave a link in the description so you can take a peek at what they look like, and that can go anywhere in the world. So good luck to everybody, and thanks a lot for subscribing. I really appreciate it. I'm going to do a little bit of flat work in the shop in this video. I'm going to request to make a few cutting boards. And this is the milled stock. It's been precision sanded on the glue surfaces, the initial glue surfaces, in a double drum sander. And we're just going to do the first glue up, and we'll walk you through how I make end grain cutting boards. So this is the pattern that we're going to make. It's not my design. It's one that I saw. I'm not sure if I saw it online or in a magazine, but it's made out of popple, black walnut, padauk, and cherry. And we're going to make two versions of it. We're going to make two of each. We're going to substitute Purple Heart for padauk in two of them. We're going to lay one out and show you how we glue them up. I'm using two pieces of PVC pipe, and I've got little cradles holding them up. They're up high enough that I can slide a bar clamp underneath without affecting them, which makes it very convenient. First step is to lay out the wood the way that you're going to glue it up. So it starts out with a piece of popple, then a piece of 1 3/4. This is 5/16. This is 1 3/4. Then a piece of padauk. Quarter-inch piece, though the padauk is 7/8. Quarter-inch piece of walnut. Quarter-inch piece of poplar. 1-inch piece of cherry. You have to be really careful laying these out, because when you get a 1-inch piece in both directions, you got to make sure that you get the finished side the right way. Another 1 3/4 piece of walnut. Another 7/8 padauk. There's a 1/4-inch piece of poplar. A 2-inch piece of walnut. A 3/4-inch piece of poplar. Another 1/4 of walnut. One more piece of padauk. And another this is an 1 13/16 wide piece of walnut. So you want to mark these so that you know that when you've got the glue and you're putting the clamps on, that you've got them going in the right direction. And then you turn them all a 1/4 turn away from you. Except for the very first one, which you can turn toward you. Use tight bond thread on these because it is food safe and water resistant. It's a little more time consuming on these pattern boards because each piece is obviously a different height. If you were just making a regular plain end grain cutting board where all these pieces were the same, you just lay them very tight together and paint the whole thing. Okay, now we can start putting them together, holding one end flush so that we get the best amount out of our pieces, because they're not exactly all the same length. Now I'm going to slide a clamp on the top first. I'm not putting that one too tight just yet because I want to make sure that everything's down good. So these have set for 3 hours now, and it's time to take some glue off the top and clean the surfaces up a little bit before we put them through the sander. And the goal is to get the thickest panel that we can get into these and have the surface being good to glue. Now we're on to the drum sander to get the surfaces finished up the rest of the way so that they're able to be glued together. One of the advantages of a drum sander, the biggest advantage of a drum sander, is you can take a very little bit off at a time and you don't get any tear out. And so you don't have to worry about ruining a panel that you've got a bunch of time into. So if there's any small chips taken out by the planer, the drum sander will clean those up if you left yourself enough surface to do that. I cut some other pieces of wood up on this side of 45, so I adjusted it back up to what was close to straight, and I'm just checking to make sure that I'm at 90 exactly with this digital angle gauge. I need these to be exactly right on so that they glue nice and tight. I'm going to use my miter gauge. I started out with the intentions of using it for all the cuts, but certainly I want to use it on the first one so that I get a good straight edge on the very first where it's not perfectly glued. Even on all ends, but I found that it was just a little bindy using that, and so after the first few cuts I switched over and just used the fence, which worked just fine. If I were going to make a lot of these, I would build a sled for the table saw though, which would be a much more efficient way of doing this. Okay, so we took our strips, glued them up into a panel like this, dressed it, sanded it down so it's nice and smooth both sides. Then we ripped it into 1 3/8 thick strips. And then the way this works is we turn all the strips up on their edge to give you the end grain that we want for a cutting board. And then what we do to get the pattern that I want is we flip every second one. Now one of these was a little bit shy on the end. I just want to make sure that I get it the right way. It's that one right there. So I'm actually going to turn these all 100% the other way because I have a little bit of skip dress right there. Alright, so what we do to get the pattern that we want is we take every second piece, flip it end for end. Now what you need to make sure of when you glue this back together is that you make these joints between the 1/4" walnut line up perfectly. So when you glue this up, they need to be just like this. There, that's the pattern that we're looking for in our finished board. So we're going to clean this up, glue it up, clamp it, and next time you see it, we'll be running it through the sander. Starting off sanding with coarser grit paper, and actually could have stood to have a little more coarse than what we actually had. So this will be the first time through until we get it cleaned up, and then we're going to switch over to finer paper with a 220 finish in the second drum. So now they get the final pass through the drum sander at 220 grit. Just going to clean up the outside edges on the horizontal belt sander here now, using 220 grit as well. So even though these were put through the drum sander at 220 grit, there's still lines in them, and because it's end grain, they don't come out with 220 grit paper like you think they would. So we had to go back and start at 120 and work through 120, 150, 180, and 220 again with the orbital disc sander, and then give us the finish that we wanted. Once the faces were sanded down to where we wanted them, just took the small electric orbital sander with some fine paper and just knocked the very edges off and rounded the corners. This is always the best part when you get to put some oil or finish on a piece of wood that brings out the grain in it. This is just regular butcher block oil, pure mineral oil. So I put a very heavy coat on each side, and I put one on one side, let it soak in, then flip it and do the other side. And then I repeat that. And it soaks up so much oil at the time, and then when you leave it, it'll bleed out for a couple of days. And you just keep buffing that in. And once it's done bleeding out, they're ready to use. So while I'm doing this, just want to remind everyone again to make sure they put a comment in the comments so that they can be entered in the giveaway. Good luck to everyone. Thanks again to everyone who subscribed. I really do appreciate it. And if you haven't, please consider doing so. If you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up. If you didn't like it, hit the thumbs down and let me know why. And we'll see you next time.